words about yourself, about your background and experience. Then we go with Konstantin and myself.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Urs. I'm the CEO of Exidros. I spent most of my life in business operating in the classical traditional world. So I spent many years in the precious metal market, being responsible for the global trading and global logistic business. And 2 years back, I decided to move into the digital world. And that's how we generated and founded Exidros. Exidros is an IT software provider for the precious metal business.
Hi from me, I'm Konstantin, and I've started my career actually in bank, and I was part of the whole fintech processes long before this term was actually got that hyped. And since then, I've been dedicated to accelerate the inevitable digital transformation of this century-old industry. And at FIRE, we just do that. We enable companies to launch first-in-class digital financial products and provide delightful customer experiences. Our platform is used as the engine behind the fintech propositions of the companies like Austria Telecom and small and medium banks. We have been recognized as the best Bulgarian fintech startup for 2 consecutive years, for 2019 and for 2020. And I've been honored to join you in this session today.
Thank you for the introductions. My name is Nikolai Shakirov. I also started my career in a bank, in the IT department, and I spent most of it in the IT departments of banks and insurers. Actively being a part of digitizing their services, the customer experience, and so on, in constant competition with all the startups that emerged along the years. So I had a very hard job, always catching up. And a few years ago, I joined ScaleFocus that supports much of the banks and the startups. And now I'm closer to the cutting edge of this the digitization and innovation in the fintech sector. We are here today. Unfortunately, Xavier will not be able to join us, but I believe we can have a very good discussion, the 3 of us, discussing the challenges in front of startups in the fintech sector. I mean, it is a red ocean. It is very popular with startups. We've seen a lot of things change here in the course of the last over 10 years, I think. So let's start by setting the background here. In my view, a startup emerges when one or more very bright people invents an idea on how to solve a known problem, and this is actually the core of every startup. Do you share this observation, or did your startups start in any differently than this?
Well, actually, you summarized it quite well, even though it's quite generic here. You have somebody actually sees a big enough problem which deserves attention, and finds a compelling solution to this problem, and then he tries to find the right people to actually prove that the problem is real and they can build a solution that can resolve it. But in my opinion, the true challenge for every startup is actually to navigate in the market when the solution that they have assumed that would work and the market that they have assumed that is this big and it can take the solution actually faces reality. And in most cases, the perceptions are not really 100% correct. And from then on, you need to maneuver actually and to find your minimum viable product or minimum viable excellence, as one very smart guy actually was preaching about, because actually to beat the competition and to beat the market, you need to have something more than just a viable product. You need to be really great at something particular, very specific on it. And this is where actually the challenge just begins, when your assumptions face reality, and in most cases, they're not quite matching. And the challenge is to navigate and actually fulfill and actually be able to bring value across the chain. And most of the, and that's why I think that the initial idea is not actually that important, actually. It's the team that you have gathered and the culture that you have established, which will allow you to maneuver.
We'll come to those expectations in a bit. Urs, how did you start? How did the magic happen?
No, I can agree what Konstantin said. It's like, or what you said at the beginning, you need to have a field which you fear or you have experienced major pain points and that you have an idea to solve it. Realistically, that already has been detected by others as well. And a good growth ground for a startup is really that it can't be solved as a company alone. So it means that you have an issue which a company itself cannot solve because they depend on others or they depend on outside impact, which they are not able to catch so easily because of their existing business. So they don't want to give up their existing business. So they need to have a small neutral player to come into it, to actually build the bridge to the others. And that enables a good ground for a startup. But I totally agree. You need to have a good idea. I totally agree. You need to have this MVP, which is a bit better than anybody else. And you need to have 2 or 3 key points which the others are not able to do. And if you can combine this with the market expertise, so that you talk the language of them and meet the expectation, then you're actually able to sell it to them as a new, more innovative solution, which they're ready to join.
Yeah, and I discovered one common thing about the three of us. We all work in technology, but we all have business backgrounds and business education. So I'm very curious. When you started your companies, you obviously had some expectations business-wise, not technology-wise. How relevant did they prove in time?
The technology often opens up opportunities, but on the other hand, the business experience makes you aware about the feasibility, how to bring it to the ground, how to actually make it work. So not only have a bright technology setup or have like a latest technology being used, but you need to have as well the capability to combine it with the with the real world to say how to make money out of it. And that meeting point, that helps if you have the background of both business and technical to be combined. Yeah.
What about you, Konstantin? What about your expectations? Which ones turned out to be realistic and which ones not so?
Well, actually, I started my startup journey when I was quite young. I am with a business background, but I have been a techie all through my life. So I've joined my first startup in 2013. I was invited over by a friend of mine to join as a CTO. But my business background was always somehow, pushing me towards the business side of the thing. So I was 2 years after this. I founded with my current co-founders another startup when I was where I took the leading role, and as a geeky guy who was always into tech, I was always it was always something disturbing if I'm making the right choice, actually pushing myself into the more focusing on the business side, and something that actually made me take this big step is that in our region, especially here in Central and Eastern Europe, we don't have that much tradition in business. And there is not that too many talents that we can actually get and hire and or cooperate with so we can found a great venture. And that's why I've thought that I need to push myself in this direction. And a lot of the expectations actually came I didn't have that much expectation, actually, to be honest, because I was always perceiving myself as the technical guy, as the chief of tech, etc. And it just happened to the life to drag me into a totally different direction, where I feel quite comfortable, actually.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Where I feel quite comfortable, actually. So, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
sorry, there was some glitch. I should have started with saying that there are some glitches in the platform today. So it is very live, very ad hoc. So it disconnects from time to time. So thank you about this. Now let's talk about the overall digitization of the financial sector. It is a very traditional sector. In my view, it is among one of the first to become digital. It is very let's put it like technology heavy. We've all heard stories that there is one famous saying, I think from 15 years ago, where the CEO of one of the biggest banks in the world said, we are nothing more than an IT company with a banking license. And we've seen it digitize long before that. We know that one of the first major core systems in the world were developed for banks, for insurers, and other companies in the financial sector. And it seems that there is no limit to the extent to which we can digitize it, because we have the biggest number of startups, tech startups in the financial sector, and the velocity is the biggest here. So what do you think about the digitizing? Are we at the peak, or are we just at the beginning? What do you think?
Yes, you can go first if you want to.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think the journey just has started, because there are 2 points. Which why do you actually digitize things? Point one is you need to be able to take the advantage of a digitalization, means to bridge the past where the banks have optimized and digitalized their internal processes. So they just digitalized their workflows and so on. But what they totally forgot is that the world becomes global, or the business is global, and the interaction between the different business partners becomes much more important and needs to be faster. And that's where today's situation is, that these B2B processes between the banks and between the bank and its clients, or the supplier of any product to the bank and its clients, these interfaces, that they are seamless and secure, and that digitalization just started. People, like the clients, they want to have one single point of access. They want to use the bank from their mobile phones, or they want to have access to their services of the banks via their computer or mobile phones. So they don't want to go to the bank anymore and get certain services only at the counter. They want to have it accessible at home, or best via the mobile phone. And this accessibility, that it just started. For me, there's a big future to come.
There are all things to be done in the financial sector. It's the whole sector is a huge thing. So if you take all the verticals within it, there are so many use cases that are still uncovered. But I want to make a step back, actually, to what you said, Nikolai, on that maybe this is like one of the first sectors that was digitized, or that was heavily relying on IT resources and etc. And I started my career at a bank in the IT department as well, actually. In 2007, I was 21, something like this. And I still remember very well how hard it was for us, especially for the young people full of energy, to actually launch some more disruptive services. I remember the first service that we were working on in 2007 was actually pushing very, very hard to enable our customers to actually get access to their internet banking without never going to the bank. It was something unheard, and we needed to have a lot of internal negotiations, actually, and it was a it took a lot of time from the idea to actually getting some budget to implement this. And that's why I think that, yeah, the traditional financial institutions were heavily relying on technology to optimize and to control and monitor their internal processes. But when it comes to the customer relationships and actually making possible for the customer to access his financial, his funds actually, and to manage his funds from anywhere, from his phone or from his computer, or from his watch, was actually not pushed by the traditional institutions. It was pushed by the technology-first companies, which became banks, EMIs, or any type of financial institutions. And I think that what this digital disruption brings is far greater actually than the technology itself and the digitization. It's the way of thinking, it's the way we are thinking of our customers. It's changing the whole industry in a lot of different ways, other than just providing convenience and easy access to services. This is dragging with it a pivotal change in the mindset toward the customer, in my opinion. Just an example, the traditional institutions were in quite a good space for them. They were very comfortable with the situation 10 years ago, where there was not much actually challenges and competitions from technology-first companies. They needed to innovate, but they were not pushed to actually, and things were going very, very, very slowly, and decisions were taken not having the customer needs at first, and maybe the P&L at first. Yeah, a business won't be a business if it's not making money, but there is a very thin line between actually exploiting your customers actually to the maximum and actually making a service that will be suitable for them. And I think that some of the traditional institution was crossing this very thin line. And now when we are a digital society, and when switching a bank takes just uninstalling an app and installing a new one and onboarding for 5 minutes, this way of thinking is now impossible because of the market and not because of anything else. And this is actually the pivotal change I see driven by technology.
Yeah, I'd like to add here one thing. We need to understand that the bank itself, I mean, why do you want to have a bank? Because they give you the trust that the money you put into the bank is still there. So the banks are very risk aware, and they don't like new products to be tested. So they need these kind of small companies, new ideas thinker, which are like speedboats driving around and checking it out. And once it works, then they will adjust it and use it. Because they have such a legacy behind with this really big tanker of existing systems, regulations, audits, etc. And this kind of challenging situation for them is opening up a big opportunity for the fintechs to play the speedboat and test out new technology. And on the technology side, new system or new technologies has developed to ensure trust to the data. So it's not just digitalizing, but it's as well trusting the data. And this combination of having now technology, which makes your data trustworthy, combined with the efficiency gain and with the easy accessibility, banking or any kind of financial activities are the perfect playground for digitalization.
Thank you, Urs. I was just going to extract three topics that came out from what Konstantin said, and you covered the first one. The first one was about trust, because this is actually the greatest asset of the banks. And with what we call the shared economy, and the world globalizing practically, our notion of trust also evolves. And in a few minutes, I hope that you will explain about the distributed ledger that you use in the core of your solution. But I would first like to touch the other two topics that you mentioned. First, Konstantin several times mentioned that the customer, the client. Now, spending enough time in traditional financial companies, I know how important the relationship is with the client. So when we speak about the clients, I mean, do we speak about every client? I know certainly some clients, especially like with a more traditional approach to banking or to dealing with their money in general, that will be very reluctant to use a digital solution. Do we completely ignore them, providing technical solutions, or not? And then the other topic that I hope we can touch later is about optimizing our processes so that we serve our clients better. So we come back to the clients, but from a different perspective, from the background. So what are your thoughts about the clients? Do you think that all the clients can be covered, and there will be at some point a fintech startup that will be recognized by all the clients, or not?
Well, I think that every company is focusing on particular customer group or segment. So I would be quite surprised actually for a company to be deployed across like all the generation and all customer segments. Even the Facebook is not being successful in this, which is a mass media. You know, younger people don't use actually Facebook that much. Yeah, my mother starts using it. But now, my teenager relatives are not using this platform. So I don't think that any solution can penetrate all the customer segments around. So, and that's the beauty of it, because this creates a lot of opportunity and a lot of companies that will that will provide the right product for the right customer. So there is no one flavor which would fit all, in my opinion.
No, totally agree. I mean, this all-inclusive, all-serves solutions will not exist anymore. I don't want this myself. I don't want to have the same access like a teenager or like a totally different person. I want to have my personalized kind of access where I feel comfortable. And that's where the banks and all the companies, they can now really kind of customize their approach. Even though the products behind are the same, but you can customize the front end, so to say, the experience to it, that you give the clients its well-being, and it's he feels comfortable by using and using it and being client of that company.
Okay, so what about the way that we optimize the processes in the background to better serve our clients? I mean, it's also a very large playing field. Do you think that there is a limit, and what defines that limit? For example, that limit could be that clients don't want to speak to a chatbot; they prefer to speak to a live person. Have you hit any limits in the line of your work?
That's why they will have a more expensive plan, so they can actually speak to a real person. Actually, it's again, you provide a solution depending on the needs of the customer. So if one really wants to have fast access, as per your example, to a real person, well, there is a cost for it. So if he's ready to pay for it, then they'll get access to such a service. I don't think that actually we have reached the potential of automatization and optimization of our internal processes at all, especially as when you're a small startup, and even when you grow quite big. Especially when you're small, you do a lot of things in a very non-optimal way, because you want to validate that what you do will actually be scalable, it will be in value, etc., etc. So you don't have a lot of time to automate it. A lot of the young startups are using far more Excel spreadsheets than usual, than needed, and all of their reporting is done on such instruments. They have a lot of manual work that's just for an experiment to be done, and if it works, they will be automating it. And when we look at the big corporations, if we have reached our limit, companies like UiPath, for instance, won't exist at all. So we're just in the beginning of the automatization of these processes. AI is just starting to get some real traction, in my opinion, and real application in these processes. So we will have a lot of, we will see a lot of innovation in this space during the next 5-10 years.
Absolutely agree. One just additional point. I mean, you need to differentiate between some regional banks, which need to fulfill some regional legislation, and then you have the global banks, which really see it more from a point of view, like what is the customer's need and how can I still play in the different regulation fields. And this kind of fulfilling the individual regulations need in terms of reporting, security, auditability, and so on, this can all be optimized. And they'll still keep on top the client's individual access profile, so that they feel that's my bank or that's my company and I have access to it. I have access to it whether I'm in Germany or I'm in whatever, which country. I don't mind, and they are able to manage that business there in these regulations. But I think the more these common regulations are kind of balanced or aligned within Europe or globally, then the digitalization even has more ground to play.
And just after this, still I see banks that have, I don't know if our crowd actually is aware of, but a lot of the banks used to have the so-called course of business day processes, which means a team of IT operation people are executing some scripts and process and operations to close the day. And this is just an internal, this is some of the internal process that I was amazed that like 13, 14 years since I've left the bank, some banks are still having it. So some people each and every night are closing business, executing manual procedures, checking tick boxes, signing papers actually that this is them and they have done this and this and that. So we are in the very beginning, in my opinion. If we have still banks that are doing these things, so.
I believe we do. I believe we do. And we touched also another important topic. It is the topic of regulation. Sometimes the changes in regulations, they lag behind the changes in the process. And what I've seen recently as a challenge is with working from anywhere that we have implemented in our company, luckily or not, just before the pandemic. But we've had some questions about what if people work from a distant country, out of the EU, for example. And we had a lot of overhead checking and making sure that we are compliant with all the requirements. So when it comes to collaboration, is it a challenge for startups, or is it an enabler? I know that we work together with a lot of companies all over the world, and for us, as partners of startups and fintechs, it is an enabler. But how do you guys see it?
Yeah, the corona pandemic with this whole home office regulations just speeded up the development, which in the tech industry is already quite usable. You have a split of home office and you work where you have access to the internet. So you don't really need to have an office space. For the startups, this is much easier because you don't have this kind of established structures already in place. You don't have this overhead, which try to make sure that they have their reasons and they have their own work to do. So by having a new start, you can avoid this kind of overhead building up process and really have a decentralized approach. We work very well with this decentralized approach that enables that we find the right people because it helps to have really talented people and tell them, okay, you can stay where you are, you can work for us where you are, deliver in time, and that's it, what we need. And then we connect together via the Teams or the video screen. And that helps. That helps very much.
I'm totally with you here about actually having quite a wider geography which you can find talents, and you don't care where exactly they are, which makes the choice quite richer, actually. And I was, when we first started when I first started the company, I was quite reluctant to actually having too much home office, etc. I was with the opinion that we need to have a special bond together, which can be only built when we're physically in one space. But now, when we're forced actually to go remote, our team doubled actually during the pandemic. So we've had a lot of people that we've never met and still haven't met in person. And it creates certain challenges in actually propagating your culture and do your evangelism things and getting everybody with the same energy. But from the other point, it makes I think people are quite more productive, especially when the way they need to just execute. And when everything is agreed on, you have a planning session and everybody knows exactly what they need to do to reach the goal, it's far more productive. And now when we have more and more people that feel protected and want to come back in the office, we are building this special structure of flexible working space where nobody has a desk, etc. We are gathering only for the creative processes and for the cultural events. Like today, for instance, we have a celebration for launching a feature that too much, and it will be in person finally, because we used to do these things in front of the computer with a glass of whatever you would like to drink, and it was quite artificial. Didn't felt that good. And this is actually what we'll be doing now: celebrations, planning events, brainstormings, and creative processes in the office. Whoever can come, and or the rest are remotely, but the majority in person. And then when it comes to execution, I personally prefer, and our team members are free to come here or stay at home, but I personally prefer, especially the engineer, to stay at home, because when we have like 15, 20 people here and they haven't met each other for a long time, it's not productive, guys. It's not productive.
And what about so this is like a bit introspective within our companies. How do you feel about the external exposure? Because with this collaboration that is currently the norm, the online collaboration and virtual teams, we are suddenly, on one hand, able to source talent from anywhere in the world. So everyone in the world practically can compete to become our partner or vendor. But on the other hand, we're also competing with everyone else in the world. So do you see those things as opportunities or challenges?
100% opportunity, actually, because the bigger the market that you can reach, the better for you. Yeah, the competition is there, but market beats it all, actually. And so now people are are getting used to think more global. And yet, in my opinion, especially Europe is quite fragmented. Even if the digital, I'll say, transformation that was so accelerated by the COVID broke a lot of barriers. I think that Europe is quite fragmented as a market. Even if we can get into a hope with a French company, if we don't have a French sales guy, for instance, we can hardly sell there, etc. So it's not 100% true, in my opinion, that now once we have broken these barriers, the markets are more reachable in a way.
Totally agree. Here, I just see one point which is a bit challenging, or which starts to become challenging, because if you come into an implementation phase of your solution at the client side, then that's the part where you need to have the understanding of their culture to be sure that you actually don't bypass their internal needs. And this is more difficult to catch if you're just remote. And second, if you're really on site, it helps you to speed it up or to control it better in this interactive exchange. But the other points in terms of having access to a wider workforce and doesn't create any problems in terms of competition. I see it the other way around. It helps that all the people feel this exposure and see as well that guys which just connect from abroad, what they can do, which you can't, and whether you need to speed up or whether you're still fine. But this kind of client relationship, that makes it a bit more difficult.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know that in our case, as a software company, it keeps us on our toes. We must stay very sharp because we virtually compete with everyone in the world.
Yeah. And it's totally different when you meet the people in person. You know, even just for a project kickoff, for instance, you get to feel these people, you know, and get to really know them, and then the communication, even if digital only, from then on, it's far more fluent and easy. Because you know these people, you have went to a dinner with them, you have exchanged some personal things even. It's totally different. Maybe this is the Eastern European English speaking, because with the Southern nations, you know, guys, we are a little bit more into this, you know. But even my current clients, once we haven't met for 6-8 months together, I see that some really small issues are generating some tension that's disproportional to the issue, to the size of the issue, because people are just, you know, we are becoming strangers to each other. And when we have just to sit down on a coffee and just discuss these problems and what are the goals that our clients are chasing, and feel compassion to them and try to help them in any way possible, then immediately after this, our teams are working better. There's no tension, etc. So.
Well, yes, I agree that some countries adopted the social distancing more easily than others.
Yeah.
And it is all about culture. And this, of course, goes with our teams, and also between us as vendors and our clients and partners. So now I would like to discuss a bit about the technology behind your solutions a bit. Because we discussed what happens on the market, what we see as challenges for startups and in general, but the how is actually very, very interesting. So I would like to ask Urs to say a few words about how the blockchain technology that the solution of Exedros is employing helps digitize a very traditional and slow process, and how it makes it proof. It's not even future proof; it is present proof.
Yeah, you mentioned it already. I mean, we're building a platform integrity platform solution for the precious metal market that includes gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. And this market is very traditional, means you trust your counterparty because you know them since years. But what is recently really came up is that you don't know only your counterparty, but you need to know much more about the product, about the gold itself, where the gold is actually coming from, who has been mining it, how it has been mined, what has been used before. And this information you cannot generate as a bank when you have the gold in your vault. You need to have it from your refinery or even from the mine. Means that we had to solve a solution where we had to digitize and connect the whole value chain of an entire market. So from the mine, refiners, logistic companies, and banks, to bring them all on the same data level, so that they can use the data which the mine has generated the bank can use it as original data and bring it to its client or to his auditor to confirm and to prove that this material has been responsibly sourced in a proper mine and not being sourced or mined by any kind of child labor. So how do you do this? We're using the distributed ledger approach. So a total decentralized solution, private network. And we managed to build a solution where within the network, you create the transparency on the product level so that you can always refer to the data and you can check what this product is all about. But the business transactions of the members, they stay confidential. And this link of and combination of transparency on the product level, combined with the maintaining confidentiality of the business and having no central party which then collects all the data from the whole market, that created the trust which then all the members wanted to join the platform. So now I can log on the platform and I can see who actually entered the data of the gold bar which I'm currently using in my or having in my vault. So that's why we use a blockchain solution, DLT blockchain solution, totally decentralized network, and the communication is really only peer-to-peer and is not shared with any non-involved party to avoid that business transactions are shared or need to be confirmed by others, like you have on the Bitcoin where you have a proof of work. So it's only just a notary service of the system itself. That makes it secure, that makes it fast and reliable for the members.
And it makes me wonder, I know that some banks tried to create some services based on distributed ledgers, but this did not become wildly popular. Why do you think that you were more successful on the precious markets, on the precious metal markets? Was it never any central authority, any source of central source of trust, and you were the first, or what was the issue?
I think it's a combination of A, having the right technology to safeguard the confidentiality of the members, even though you want to have transparency on the product. And B is that you're a neutral player. If you want to provide a system to multiple banks that they all use together, and you have your own stake in that business, it's going to be very difficult. So you become a competitor of them. And all the systems which had been developed in the past by each of their players themselves, they are seen to be kind of, or let's say their competitors or the other business players, they don't want to join that as they fear that certain data will be taken away from them and the other one is going to use them. So confidentiality, it's not bad here. It's really, you need to have control about your data and you need to prove that the data had not been manipulated in the meantime. And you need to have this on your own. You need to be in ownership of your data. And once you can prove, you get the clients ready to join a platform. If you're not able to do so, if you're seen as a competitor, they always say, that's too sensitive. We're not joining.
And before we go on with Konstantin's solution, that there's a question from Dina Ulrich, I hope I pronounced it correctly. To you, Urs, this sounds like a great use case, which could also apply to generic trade financing. Are you looking into other verticals as well?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the use cases of that platform, because when you have a digital proof of evidence of the material through the whole supply chain, you can actually as well massively facilitate the financing easier, faster, and that's what we are as well working with the members.
Mm-hmm. Konstantin, what about FIRE?
Well, at FIRE, actually, we're very focused on enabling the acceleration of the fintech innovation in a very abstract term. So what we do is we provide the so-called digital banking platform, which is like software as a service, and banking as a service on the other side. So if, for instance, a bank wants to catch up with the challenger fintechs that are coming, they come to us and we build for them a first-in-class digital proposition which can compete with any of the fintech or the top fintech players. They just need to select like a Lego what they would like to have, and they can put this into their core banking system, or we can provide a set of payment and banking services. For instance, if you're a credit company and you cannot issue cards, credit or debit cards, we can get this for you done from one of our partners that we're working with as a payment institution, and etc. And something that we're pushing quite focused on recently is because we have built these modular components that you can use to build your own mobile banking proposition with your banking services behind, or with a selection of our partners like issuing, acquiring, etc. And now what we're looking at more and more focused is actually exposing these modules to be integrated with third-party mobile applications, websites, or even IoT components. So actually any application can become a fintech app by just integrating our services behind. They can select their own payment provider or work with some of those that we are already integrated with, which makes the whole model quite more scalable globally, because we don't totally depend on any particular payment or financial institution behind. We're just a technology company that provides these components. So this is the way, actually, in this abstract term, that we accelerate fintech innovation. We help banks, credit companies, or financial institutions, which are traditional players, to actually catch up with the fintechs by providing them first-in-class technology, which can allow them to launch digital products. Or we can allow actually anyone who has nothing to do with finance now and wants to integrate a particular financial product or service within their existing products to do it fast and efficient.
So it seems that in both cases, your solution is actually avoiding the user being locked with a certain authority or a certain solution.
Exactly.
And being restricted.
Exactly, yes. So we're making the whole financial and payment infrastructure and technology, which is quite complex, easy to be easily integrated and used in a variety of use cases. And actually, this was why I was so focused on actually that the use cases that we have now covered are a small percentage of everything that can be done in the fintech space. We see more and more fintech services embedded in products that are not really focused on financials, and this will become more and more. We see a lot of financial interactions which are not happening in the most optimal ways. Sectors like, even if we take, for example, something that needed to get quite accelerated digitization, was the care homes and home care, where, especially during the COVID era, where practically all these older people were isolated from the social life they needed to be, and the whole all the process related to actually finance or to managing all their financials were far outdated for the situation that happened. So we are even looking on use cases in this direction, where you don't see a very natural fit in the demographics, like people are 75 years old plus to use fintech solutions, but it's true that they need to, and they're getting onboarded more and more. Yeah, they won't be using the general retail fintech applications, something very specialized for them. And again, this can be built quite easily from the digital banking platform that we are building, because it's just a set of components that you can arrange in a way that you desire to fulfill your problem.
Yeah. And speaking of COVID, you seamlessly touched the last topic that I wanted to discuss today, because we all deal in tech. You guys are on the cutting edge in your industry with your solutions. Did the pandemic turn your attention to any specific solutions? I can give one example from my daily life. We employed a platform that facilitates the discussions of legal documents with our clients and partners. Instead of exchanging files over the email, we simply upload the file into the platform. We provide access to our clients. We discuss it, share comments, resolve them using that platform, and then it is also used to sign those documents. And this, as small as it seems to a lot of people, is a great relief. And it saves a lot of paperwork and going back and forth. Do we have the last version of the file? Was I looking at the right one, and so on? You know very well what I'm speaking about. So in your line of work, did you at any point find such a solution that makes your lives easier, or did you discover something that annoys you just because it could be digitized and it is not?
I can give you an example from where we are in that business. And the business traditionally relies very much that you have everywhere auditors to check what the others are doing. And these auditors, they need to fly, they need to be on site, so to make sure that they really check it with their eyes and see, okay, I've been there, and sign it. And I thought that, okay, that would be the ideal, that we can do now a digital proof in terms of using a DLT or a blockchain solution, that more and more services would actually be digitalized and clients would rely on it. And this education, that you don't need to have a physical person with a certain brand name on it, like Price Waterhouse and so on, but it's actually done. This automated trust comes now with the technology with it. Yeah, the Corona helped to move that. It helped to move this awareness that, okay, let's now look, what is there more modern solutions than have people on the ground. And that really helped to move that process. And on the other side, it's a bit of education work needed. So we need to spend a lot of time to explain it to the people, how trustworthy it is, how you check it. But it helped to push that.
Actually, from my side, the electronic signing documents was one of the greatest reliefs I've got out of this COVID era, because we actually internally, we used to push a lot on this, and actually, how to say, heavily reward any sort of electronic signatures, even from our internal process when we need to sign off paid leaves, etc. So we used to actually employ this before the COVID era, but our peers were quite reluctant. So signing documents with big clients electronically was almost unthinkable. And it's absolutely inefficient to print like 50 pages on 4 versions of them, then sign here, then sign each and every version, then send it via courier, and it's a hectic process. And one of the greatest things that happened, actually, that now practically everyone is using it. Something that we employed, and because we've missed a lot the social interactions in the office and the small talk and the opportunity to actually just jump in and ask something, like not just chat on Slack, etc., but really conversate with people. And we've employed actually Discord, this tool that is used by streamers and video gamers and gamers. And we have channels for each and every team, and you just can hop in and ask, hey, the mobile developers, what's going on with this and that, etc. And actually, it felt like I was in the office because everybody is on Discord, and you can just hop in or pause or interact with these people. So this was something that brought some light in the very dark days. It was winter, cold, and no social interactions with nobody, and you just interact with your partner or whoever you have at home. So this helped a lot, actually, and boosted productivity, honestly, because sometimes when chatting with people, it takes too much time to qualify a question that we can qualify for a minute in conversation.
All right. Since we have only 5 minutes left, I propose that I try to sum up our conversation, and we leave some time for questions. We have over 30 participants. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. It was fascinating to me to pick your brains and to see, try to understand what you expect and where you're looking. If I can make a brief summary, we are far from the peak of digitization in the financial sector. So we'll see even more fintech startups, even more disruption, since the competition is vast in any direction that we look. We need to stay sharp at all times to be at the top of our game. And one of the most important things that we must build is trust, and it is very easy to lose it. To lose it, the reasons might be various. They might be business reasons, technical reasons, and even cultural reasons. And this goes, the trust we built goes internally within our organizations and the way that we collaborate with our teams, our partners, and also equally importantly, externally with our clients. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution in this sector. And the beauty of having so many startups is that they each address some individual needs that covers all of you combined. You cover a bigger portion of the market that will always grow.
Perfect summary.
We have another question from Don Ginzel. How would you say startups can prepare for the level of regulatory compliance they need to implement to be able to work with corporate clients? I believe, Urs, you work with a lot of corporate clients.
Yeah, that's a bit difficult part. If you start working with global banks, then after sending a small letter of intent, and you have a lot of discussions in terms of the regulatory affairs. I think the point is, before you need to get the business on board, to have the business already attracted by the idea, and then to get the regulatory combined with it. If you start to get into a client and then a regulatory burden is the first part you need to take, and you don't have the support of the internal stakeholders of that big company, then it's going to be almost impossible. And I think what we do is we just have standard topics and say that's how we work. They are in one language. They really that's the smallest, the denominator. We try to be as easy as possible, and have a bit the startup benefit that they say, okay, yeah, we understand that you don't have the whole packages of all this regulatory compliance, but you need to be able to have the minimum done. So and to be very transparent on them, so that you really say, this we did, this we did, this we did, this we don't have because, and you need to be able to explain. So comply, or really just explain why you don't have it and why at this stage you don't have it yet. And then that creates a lot of understanding at the other side.
Okay, you might be ahead of the market or ahead of the legislation and the regulation.
Yeah, exactly. There's no clear boundaries what to be checked in this technology. So that's why you need to be very transparent on what you do and how you do it, and get the client at the very early stage on board, and not to hide. Otherwise, it creates problems.
Yep. Thank you. So we have another minute left and no more questions. So I would like to thank you once again, and also thank the organizers for having the opportunity to chat with you guys. We had only one glitch for a full hour, so it means the platform is also working fine. So have a good afternoon, everyone, and hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
It was an honor and a pleasure. See you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye.